top secret program.
Everyone saw the exact same thing, so no one was hallucinating.
Investigating credible sources of the incredible.
We may have a potential national security threat on our hands.
Are these sightings proof of aliens?
There's no propulsion system that we've got that will do that.
Or proof of an incredible new top secret government technology?
098 firm, we have splash. Stand by for BDA.
Every year, more than $90 billion is allocated to clandestine government programs, collectively called the Black Budget. Each individual operation is a black file.
I'm Mike Baker. As a covert CIA operations officer for over a decade and a half,
I supervised missions around the globe. My security clearances gave me access to many classified projects. Now, I'm following the money trail to the secrets hidden inside the Black Files.
in 2017, news broke of a secretive government program investigating unknown aircraft flying into U.S. airspace. The Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or ATIP, is a $22 million black file. Even within the government, most don't know what they do. Are they capturing hostile spy craft, testing out latest technology, or something else?
November 2004. It's a clear, sunny day off the coast of San Diego, California. Commander David Fravor pilots his F-18 off the USS Nimitz at near Mach 1 speed. The Navy Striker has logged thousands of hours flying hundreds of combat missions. Suddenly, his training exercise is canceled and he's ordered to investigate an air threat. He's confronted dozens, but nothing like this.
My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Oh, thing, dude.
This incredible video is one of 3 released by the Department of Defense. The New York Times broke the story, describing a U.S. government-funded program investigating UFOs called ATIP, run by military intelligence deep within the Pentagon. What did they make of this incident, and what are they doing about it? I'm going to find out by speaking with someone who saw this UFO with his own eyes. I've managed to secure a meeting with Commander Dave Fravor. Now, the commander was one of 2 aircraft that had an incredible experience and an amazing sighting that they still to this day can't explain.
Commander Dave Fravor, Mike Baker, thank
Nice to
you
meet you,
very
Mike.
much. You've seen a lot of things up in the air. What was your first thought?
What is it? Never seen anything like it. I mean, I've seen Harriers, I've seen helicopters. If you don't know Harriers, the jump jet that can go up. Nothing like that. No, this is...
Drones? Drone technology?
No. It looks like for us, because I've looked at enough airplanes from a distance, it's about the size of an F-18 lengthwise. So somewhere around 40, 45 feet. I mean, it's literally a tic-tac. It has no wings. And by the time I get to about the 12 o'clock position on the clock, it kind of turns and now it starts to mirror us. So it's like it's aware that we're there. And about the time I start pulling nose on, because I want to get close to it, it goes poof and it's gone.
What kind of speed would that be?
Fast. We say supersonic, well past that.
Did you have eyes on target when it took off,
I had eyes on it from the time we saw it, never took my eyes off of it.
It's 4 people saying.
4 of us saw this, oh yeah.
Plus the radar operator.
Everyone saw the exact same thing, so no one was hallucinating. Honestly, in my heart, I believe it was a technology beyond what we've developed on Earth. I honestly believe that. There's nothing in the world that can do what this did.
But nobody came to you and said, do not discuss this.
That's correct. We were never debriefed to go, don't talk about this or anything. We just didn't. Not until about 6-7 months ago, the pilot of the other airplane had contacted me and said, well, I've been to the Pentagon like a half dozen times.
Dave, I gotta tell you, this has been fascinating, and thank you for your
You're
time.
welcome.
And thank you for your service again, and I hope
you're
you
quite
get an
welcome.
answer at some point.
Oh, so do I.
I have to say that when it comes to things like this, I'm kind of hard to convince. I have no doubt that Fravor and his team saw something, but of course the question is, what? I've flown a ton, and there are all sorts of things buzzing around up there. So I'm heading down to San Diego, to the scene of the sighting.
I'm meeting up with Eric Mulder. With 12 years as a Navy pilot, he's got the background to help me better understand what Commander Fravor experienced.
Eric.
Hey.
Hey.
How's it going?
I've been investigating ATIP, right? And one of the most incredible sightings was just off the coast here of San Diego.
Yes.
David Fravor, Commander Fravor, spotting something as it was flying off the Nimitz. To this day, we don't know what it is. Now, this baby's going to be flying lower and slower than Commander Fravor.
Right.
But tell me about what it looks like out there. How much traffic are we talking about? How much, are we likely to see anything else up there besides ourselves?
We'll see a couple airplanes, and it'll be similar down low as it would be at altitude. There'll be airliners out there, there'll be military aircraft. We may see some helicopters down low and some other civilian aircraft.
Okay, well, the opportunity to get out there, or at least get in the general area, right, where Commander Fravor had this sighting, let's do it.
We're good to go, and I'm excited. And I'm hoping Eric will give me some insight into what Commander Fravor experienced.
Up, and away. Fantastic. You've seen the film, and you had that experience out there flying for the Navy. What do you think?
Either it was some super sophisticated military drone that was purposely intercepting those aircraft, or it was something, you know, out of this world that was investigating the aircraft. Something wanted to be seen.
What about your time flying? A dozen years flying for the Navy. Did you ever have a moment where you saw something and you just couldn't identify it?
I have never seen anything or even heard of anything in our military inventory or even airplanes that would perform like that aircraft. That kind of acceleration, no wings. I don't know of any flying wing design that could move, turn, and act so quickly. Yeah, I'd have to take his word on it. I mean, a squadron commander of a fighter squadron is a very well-respected individual, very credible.
Eric gives Commander Fravor the benefit of the doubt. Others challenge his account. But remember, there are at least 4 other people who saw the exact same thing. All of them firm believers that what they saw defies explanation. I've located one of them, Kevin Day, a Navy Air Intercept controller who monitored the situation as it unfolded.
Hi, Kevin. Tell me about that day, right? I mean, where were you and what did you see?
I was on the USS Princeton, part of the USS Nimitz strike group in 2004. I started to see these very strange objects on radar. We all watched this object drop out of the sky from 28,000 feet down to the surface of the ocean, and I found out later the next day was 0.78 seconds.
That translates to approximately 5 miles per second, or 18,000 miles per hour. Mach 1, the speed of sound, is 761 miles per hour. That means the vehicle would have had to be traveling at Mach 23.
In the moment, as it was happening, what did you make of it? What went through your mind?
You know, in all my years of experience, we had never seen anything like that before. To this day, I don't have a good ID for them. I don't know what they were. I know what they weren't, but I don't know what they were.
So you file a report, right? There are radar images and videos. What happened next?
So the next day I go up to combat. Well, lo and behold, all the recordings were gone off the disk. Apparently, some people had come on board the ship and actually taken all of our computer radar data and all of our communications data.
U.S. intelligence monitors all communications on board military vessels. That means that not only the captain of the ship knew about the events unfolding, but higher-ups in the intelligence community did as well.
Okay, so what do you make of all of this, Kevin? I mean, at this point, how do you make sense of it?
We were being watched out there. By who and by what, I have no idea.
Both Kevin Day and Commander Fravor are resolute in what they saw. The fact that neither were debriefed and that the evidence was seized makes me think that someone wanted to keep this black file under wraps. Ultimately, they didn't succeed. I'm about to speak with one of the investigative reporters who broke the story.
It's rotating.
My investigation into the Black File ATIP is centered around this incredible video, one of 3 documented accounts of UFOs that the Department of Defense had in their possession and kept classified until recently. How did such a sensitive and top-secret video become public? It took the work of enterprising journalists like Brian Bender.
Hi, Brian. How did the story break?
I had been covering the Pentagon as a reporter for the Boston Globe and then for Politico for a number of years. And through some sources got wind of a modern-day program at the Pentagon that was researching UFOs. And of course, when I first heard this, my eyes rolled a little bit, and I was like, you can't be serious. But these were sources that were quite credible, and then also that some people who had been involved in the effort were kind of ready to go public. And that's where Lou Elizondo, who had a major role in this, what was called the ATIP program at the Pentagon, was growing frustrated that the office's work was not getting enough attention at the high levels of the Pentagon.
Lou Elizondo turns out to be the man that Commander Fravor told me met with his fellow pilot at the Pentagon. A quick search reveals that he was a career Defense Department employee, specifically a military intelligence officer who became the head of ATIP when it was formed in 2007.
How did the videos come to be released?
The 3 videos are all part of Lou Elizondo's very plotting effort over the years as he's in the Pentagon in trying to figure out how could I take some of this publicly? How could some of this information be shared in a way that it's not violating classification laws? And so Lou Elizondo, who collects these videos as part of his research in the Pentagon, goes through a very methodical process to get them declassified, which isn't easy to do.
Declassification occurs via a complex process defined by the President and Congress. The originating agency assigns a declassification date, usually 10 years. After 25 years, declassification is automatic. Now, there are exceptions. It's unknown how Elizondo got the videos declassified, but there's no question he did so significantly faster than is usual.
You've seen the videos. What do you think?
I'll have to admit, the first time I saw one of the videos, I'm not an expert in looking at this stuff, and it struck me as, well, that could very easily be doctored. I think since then, having talked to real experts who've looked at the video, I'm confident that they are the real thing. And ultimately, it was the testimony of the pilots themselves who have basically staked their reputations on the line by coming forward and saying, I saw these things were operating in a way that I can't explain, you can't explain. It's like no technology that we know that we have or anybody else has.
So what has the government confirmed about ATIP and the UFO sightings?
Well, you know, publicly, officially, the Pentagon hasn't said a whole lot about this effort. They've certainly acknowledged that the ATIP program existed, that it was, funded from 2009 to 2012. It's acknowledged that it's taking steps to gather more information about these sightings. But that's pretty much about all the Pentagon, at least officially, will say.
The government has confirmed this footage of a UFO is a Department of Defense video captured by advanced forward-looking infrared technology. But that doesn't confirm what we're seeing. I've located Ross Amir, a distinguished pilot and expert aviation consultant. He's going to look at the videos with me and hopefully help make sense of what we see.
All right, Captain, let's take it from the top. First of all, what are you seeing here as far as the indicators? What is the display telling us?
It's the HUD, the heads-up display of an F-18, where the pilot is looking through his windshield, front windshield, and sees the repeat of some of his instruments, altitude, airspeed, bank angle, and then that object, whatever that is obviously taken through the gun camera.
The gun camera on an F-18 and other aircraft is fed directly into the heads-up display, so the pilot immediately gets a high-resolution, real-time image. Ross is certain that the image is authentic.
This has been checked over and over. This is definitely from a gun sight of an F-18, United States Navy.
So what do you make of it?
Whatever that thing is, to me, it defies our laws of physics, thermodynamics, aerodynamics, gravity, everything else that we know about.
Okay, tell me about that. Why do you say that?
In order to have an object fly, as we know as humans, it has to have flight surfaces. That's your aerodynamic laws. It would have to have some sort of a propulsion. I don't see any heat signature coming out of telling me there's an engine on that thing. It's definitely, in my opinion, it's not our technology. Can't be.
By our technology, are you talking about maybe it's foreign technology?
No, I'm talking about man's technology.
Okay, so you're saying it's some type of outside of Earth, alien technology perhaps?
Whatever it is.
Okay.
I can't say for sure, but it's not ours.
Ross and others clearly believe this is technology we're not capable of. I think it's technology we're not aware of. It all comes down to, what was the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program investigating? Now, the only way I'm going to find that out is to speak with its shadowy head, Lou Elizondo. For years, a black file called ATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, investigated unidentified flying objects like this one. What they uncovered, or what they were looking for, can only be answered by their former head, Lou Elizondo. Lou, Mike Baker.
Mr. Baker.
You ran the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program at the Pentagon.
I did.
And what was your mission?
It was explained to me that we may have a potential national security threat on our hands that we can't really quite put our finger on what it is.
Say during the course of 2008 to 2012, when supposedly the ATIP program was defunded, roughly how many sightings do you think?
Again, I have to be very careful with specific numbers.
Understood.
But multitudes.
How many open files you got now?
I would say a significant number. The consensus now among some people much smarter than me believe that we're looking at really the manifestation of a single technology.
Is this something that can be explained by the Russians have developed a new form of propulsion, for example?
Absolutely.
Or lift?
I hate to say this, but we hope to find that. That's the answer we want to find. Lou, like me, prefers the Russian option to the extraterrestrial one. There are good reasons for that. If this is the result of Russian technology, then we're dealing with a known quantity and can use espionage to gain some intel. If we can get our hands on something concrete, that would go a long way towards determining exactly what it is we're dealing with. Is there a warehouse that ATIP manages that contains substances or materials or items that have not been explainable? Anytime you're going to do an investigation, you need to collect data. So in this particular case, one of the intents of ATIP was to build some sort of, if you will, repository to allow this information to be sifted. What about physical objects? What about materials? What we're talking about, Mike, are materials that have a very unique isotopic signature and ratio, not commonly found here on Earth.
It's been fascinating, Lou. I had a lot of questions answered, a lot more questions to be answered. But I want to thank you for your time, man.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your service.
Nice to meet you, Mike. Yes, sir. Thanks.
Okay, this needs some thinking. Lou said that ATIP has found and stored materials, isotopes, the composition of which is generally not found on Earth. So what does that mean? Alien technology? A new foreign development of some sort? Or something else? Good questions for a scientist. Hey, Ben.
Mike.
How you doing, man?
Doing great. How are you?
Good to see you. You know, I had a conversation with Lou Elizondo.
Okay.
And he told me something that I find really intriguing, right? He said that ATIP has actually come across physical material, right, with isotope ratios not commonly found on Earth. Okay, now, are they talking about extraterrestrial material, or are they talking about just stuff that's here on Earth but not seen very often?
Context is key. So unusual isotopes, that's actually there's a science for that. It's called meteoritics. That's how scientists can determine whether or not a meteorite came from the moon or came from Mars or came from that asteroid. So, I mean, take, for example, this. This is alien metal, de facto.
Really?
Yeah.
Alien metal?
Yep, that is a nickel-iron alloy that we cannot make.
Okay, but not made by an alien?
Correct, not made by extraterrestrial intelligence. Nature makes a lot of very interesting stuff. So, I mean, what does this mean? It means that we know that there are alien metals, literally, alloys we can't make, that aren't from this world, that land here. But it doesn't mean they came from like an alien spacecraft.
Okay, so where does all of this take us?
You have to be very careful about proposing the extraterrestrial hypothesis because there's a very clear scientific path for that. When you're looking to determine whether or not a metal came from this world or another world or that asteroid or the moon or Mars, it's actually the combination of isotopes, you know, so different versions of elements that will form a sort of fingerprint that will tell you where it came from. The point is the universe can make very interesting alloys from the start that humans even can't, but that doesn't necessarily imply some sort of extraterrestrial civilization.
Mm-hmm. Ben seems confident that there's an earthbound explanation to the materials that ATIP collected. That may or may not be true, but there's just been a break in my investigation. A Freedom of Information Act request that reveals new information about ATIP's work. There's a new development in my investigation.
A Freedom of Information Act request has revealed that ATIP was investigating dozens of subjects. I'm meeting with the investigator who filed that request.
Nick Pope worked on highly sensitive and classified projects for the British Ministry of Defense for 21 years, including leading a division where he investigated sightings similar to ATIP.
Nick. Hi there. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Nick, your experience in the UK must have been extremely valuable in helping you to try to understand ATIP.
One of the interesting things is, despite a lot of people having an opinion about the story, very, very little official paperwork, genuinely verified as being the real thing, is in the public domain. But I was able to help get some of that out.
Do you have a copy of that by any chance?
Yes, I do. And I was actually the first person to publish this. This is the relevant document here. And the really fascinating line to me in this cover letter is where they say the purpose of ATIP was to investigate foreign advanced aerospace weapon threats from the present out to the next 40 years. Well, that's what they said in the cover letter. Yeah. But then, when you look at the attachment, where they actually say what they did under the ATIP contract, a very different story emerges.
Good Lord.
You get 38 studies which were done, and this is staggering. I mean, literally, they were looking at things like invisibility cloaking, anti-gravity, warp drive, wormholes.
Some of these concepts, like anti-gravity, are being actively explored. The development of flying cars may stem from quantum levitation, where scientists use quantum physics to levitate a superconductor over a magnetic source. The power of magnetic repulsion counteracts the force of gravity. But some of ATIP's other studies, like one on warp drives, are clearly about space travel. Are these UFO videos, whatever their source, linked to our drive into outer space?
Any sense of who was responsible for pursuing them? Who was commissioned to investigate?
Well, this is the really interesting point. The contract, and there was a contract for this, was put out to the private sector. And it's actually Bigelow Aerospace that won that particular contract.
Bob Bigelow's outfit.
Yes, absolutely.
Bob Bigelow is a Las Vegas-based billionaire who founded Bigelow Aerospace to advance legitimate space enterprises and fringe science, including the study of UFOs.
What do you believe, based on what you've seen, was the purpose of ATIP?
My take is that there were three questions that get to the very heart of what ATIP was doing. One, is any of this real? Two, if it's real, what are the technologies involved? And three, can we get those technologies, acquire them for ourselves, and before somebody else like the Russians or the Chinese do?
I've looked into the different research topics funded by ATIP, and there's one topic that ties in with the videos Lou Elizondo released. These objects moved faster than any known aircraft technology that we have. But if it's not a rocket ship, what could it be? Well, I know who to ask.
I'm back in Los Angeles to meet up with Ben McGee and ask him to explain how the UFO could move like it did in the video. He believes it's due to some form of alternative propulsion.
The government's looking, via NASA, are looking at several different concepts for what we call alternative propulsion. Things like harnessing the power of light in a vacuum to squeeze energy out and push something. Or things like warp drive, like you might expect from Star Trek or sci-fi or something.
Right. Why chase alternative forms of propulsion, though? What's the point?
Most rockets, when you think of a traditional rocket, are 90% fuel or more, and then there's the teeny tiny payload at the top, which is what you want to take to space. Well, why? It's because Earth's gravity is strong, and you need so much fuel to burn and eject to propel something up. So that's the problem of our current propulsion systems, and it's epitomized by this.
And what is this?
This is a very small scale rocket engine, and you'll see that it uses a fuel as a propellant that it ejects out the back, and equal and opposite reaction would then, if this weren't anchored down, push whatever's on top forward.
Right, well, you know me, I'm always fascinated by anything that explodes or lights up, right? So can we light this up?
Oh, of course.
And I'm assuming safety first?
Safety first always. All right, well, as soon as you flip the red switch, then there's a contactor here which will heat and light the propellant, and it will go. All right, ready?
Give me the countdown.
All right. Houston, we are go for launch. In 3, 2, 1, throw it.
Nice.
All right. So that's an example of what we currently do. What if you can move away from something like this and move more toward what's in my hand?
A flashlight.
Right. Well, imagine that this were a device that would emit, or trap infrared light or radio light or microwave light in such a way that it could provide the thrust to push something. Now, this is called a radiometer.
A radiometer is a device that measures the power of electromagnetic radiation, or light. Its internal rotor exists in a vacuum and spins when exposed to light, demonstrating photon pressure.
And so it's illustrating my point, which is, what if you could build a propulsion system that didn't have propellant? It didn't need fuel that it had to eject. What if you could push something with nothing more than something like the power of light?
So what are the types of systems we're talking about?
There's a huge range of what we call blue sky ideas, all the way down to something that's more practical. So you've got the Albuquerque warp drive, which they're very different variations on a theme, but you're basically harnessing the power of something like a black hole, using things like what they call exotic matter, which could exist, but we don't know if they exist yet, to literally bend space, create a new gravitational field. Imagine the gravitational field from the Earth, but you create it sideways so that you fall in the direction you want to go. I mean, that's the essence of warp drive.
I mean, that sounds like a fantastic concept that somebody's tinkering with, but is it actually being researched in a meaningful way?
Well, it's moving that way in that there's real math and real physics. Now, can we actually, what I call bend metal, can we build something? Not quite yet. But that's why the M drive is another concept which actually uses radio light or microwave light, and it traps it in something kind of like a rocket nozzle, and there's a small scale version that's been built, and NASA EagleWorks has tested it.
The electromagnetic propulsion, or M drive, works by converting electricity into microwaves and then channeling them via a high-powered vacuum tube called a magnetron through a conical chamber. The microwaves exert force against the walls of the chamber to produce thrust to propel the craft forward. So they've actually built, they've gone beyond just scratching something up on a whiteboard, and they've actually built something to try to demonstrate the capability?
Yes, so that's the exciting thing, is they're actually testing real hardware right now.
This M drive sounds just like the kind of futuristic technology that ATIP is investigating. But how viable is it? To drill down further into this secret black file, I've tracked down someone who should know, the inventor of the M drive. While investigating the ATIP black file and their documentation of UFOs, scientists, eyewitnesses, and aviation experts have told me that the propulsion system seen here appears to defy physics. Could some type of advanced technology, possibly an alternative propulsion system, be responsible? NASA and others are researching alternative propulsion systems, including one called the M drive. I've connected with its inventor, aerospace engineer Roger Scheuer, to speak with us. He had to get permission from the Ministry of Defense, as much of his work is classified. Hello, Mr. Scheuer. Now, appreciating that I'm not a rocket scientist, can you explain the basic principle of your M drive?
The force that M drive produces is a result of the stored energy in the cavity. So you're continually putting microwave energy in there. You can very quickly get to a point where the output energy, which is being transferred into kinetic energy, is increasing faster than the input energy.
How will the M drive help to advance space travel?
Now, M drive is a propellantless propulsion technology, which offers huge advantages over commercial rockets. This is probably best illustrated by a recent design study which shows that getting 3 men to the moon and back again can be achieved with a launch mass of 10 tons. As a comparison, Apollo 11 weighed 3,000 tons at launch.
NASA scientists have successfully tested the engine in a vacuum that replicates space. Proponents claim it could take humans to Mars in 70 days versus the 7 months currently required. Professor, where are you exactly with the development of the technology?
Within 5 years, it is predicted that a small superconducting M drive powered UAV, that's an unmanned aerial vehicle or drone, will actually be demonstrated. If M drive can do this, then everything changes. Low-cost access to space is enabled, and solar power satellites become economically viable.
Given we're in the infancy of technologies like the M drive, it makes sense that if this UFO demonstrates an advanced propulsion system, the government, via ATIP, would want to learn everything possible about it.
Are there other applications for the use of the M drive?
Terrestrial applications include air taxis, long-haul air transport, and large marine vessels.
So what started out as a classified military operation could actually help revolutionize transportation?
Exactly. It's all part of the need for M drive now to come out of the shadows, because the world's problems are getting a little too serious to keep it in the hands of the military.
Well, thank you very much, sir. If a foreign power has developed a technology similar to the M drive, that would be a matter of national security, and it could explain ATIP's interest. Nick Pope told me that multi-billionaire Bob Bigelow could be involved in alternative propulsion development, among other things, for the US government. And I'm sure he would make for a very interesting conversation. I'm outside the headquarters of Bigelow Aerospace, just 6 miles north of Las Vegas. Here, Bob Bigelow's multi-million-dollar government contracts have had him researching and developing black-budget space and technology projects for decades. Now, they've declined to speak with me on camera, but that's not going to stop my investigation. I'm very fortunate to be meeting up with multiple award-winning investigative journalist George Knapp. George has spent decades investigating black files, including ATIP, and has gotten close to Bigelow.
Bob Bigelow is one of former Nevada Senator Harry Reid's constituents and a big supporter and contributor. ATIP was funded and created by Reid, who's long been intrigued by space phenomena.
Mike, how you doing?
Good to see you. Do you know if Bigelow Aerospace had any contracts related to ATIP?
They did. The contract was for $22 million over a 3-year period. Bigelow funded, put up $1 million or so before he got the contract. He spent another couple of $1 million to keep the program after the money got bottled up in Congress. And he was deeply committed to conduct a study into UFOs and related phenomena.
With ATIP supposedly wrapping up, with the end of the ATIP program, do you think that's actually where it stopped, or is there work that's ongoing that we just don't know about because it's still buried in a black file?
I'm certain that there's work ongoing. The program that we know now as ATIP, that network of people who are evaluating UFO reports as they come in, is still working. Lou Elizondo had told me and has announced to the world since that there are other videos, a couple of dozen of other videos that are very compelling. We know that there has been some lobbying effort behind the scenes on Capitol Hill. I know that there are programs ongoing that we may never see. Some of them could be materials and technology that we can't quite figure out.
Do you ever think we'll see the whole file on ATIP?
No, I don't. You know, there's probably 1,500 people have filed FOIA requests for ATIP files. I'm one of them. And DIA, Defense Department, nobody's in a hurry to release that information.
George, thank you very much. Fascinating.
We still don't know if ATIP is hiding our own top secret technology, hunting down that of another country, or seriously considering an alien presence. But we do know there are people within the government who believe the work of ATIP needs to be made public. I'm going to speak with one who's demanding that the government come clean. ATIP's documentation and exploration of as-yet unexplained UFOs has raised many questions. Do they capture sightings of an earthbound technology or something alien? What we do know is that some of the UFOs exhibit propulsion systems beyond our capability, something that, if we could harness, would fundamentally alter life on Earth.
There are many who believe the work of ATIP should be declassified and made public. Among them, the founder of ATIP, Senator Harry Reid, and his fellow Senator, Mike Gravel. Senator, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today.
I'm happy to do that, and I think that this is an intelligent and sophisticated inquiry on a very important subject.
Senator Harry Reid started the ATIP program back in 2007 within DIA, and the whole point was to study UFOs. Why did he do this, and how did he get the support of the U.S. government?
Well, first off, the last question, how he was majority leader, and so that has a lot of clout within the government, and so he just commanded that. With respect to his reasoning, certainly he's progressive with respect to his attitude towards UFOs, and I commend him in that regard.
Why is ATIP's work important?
You know, I come to the issue, not that I'm expert on it, but I just have a fundamental view that it's the height of human arrogance to turn around and assume that we are the only sentient human beings in the cosmos. That's the height of arrogance, and I don't think that's the case. Now, where they are in the cosmos, I don't know, but I do know that I think government should monitor this and monitor it with the participation of all the nations in the United Nations.
Do you believe that some of the UFO sightings might be attributed to foreign technology, and that it's important to U.S. national security interests that we understand that technology?
Well, I think it's beyond national security. You know, if there's somebody that can get to us and monitor us from another planet, I got to tell you, they have superior technology to us. And I don't think this phenomenon is tied to another country. I think it's tied to outer space. And that's the conclusion that most people who've examined this issue, that's their conclusion, that it's outer space and not a phenomena from another country.
Senator Reid and others have spoken forcefully about the need for UFO investigations to be fully transparent. Do you support that?
Totally, and I think the absence of that is ridiculous policy. What happens is that if it's not transparent,
people get suspicious and get concerned, and that's what feeds paranoia, and we don't need any more of that. What is very tragic is that the government has always tended to, well, we got to keep this secret. There's just too much secrecy in the world, and one of the things they can, my point of view, can keep no secrecy at all. Just make everything available to the public worldwide as to whatever observations and conclusions that our scientific community has on this subject.
Senator, what is the future of government-funded UFO investigations? Will it continue?
Well, I would hope so, but here again, we don't need these black budgets like the CIA budget to do this. What we want is an arm of the government that is doing this publicly and scientifically with the private community and the public community.
Should UFO investigations be a top priority for the U.S. government?
It should be a top priority to investigate this, because it really is. We don't know what it is, and that's the problem right there. And we need to acquire as much knowledge as possible. And as we go into space ourselves and with our telescopes, this may enhance that investigation, and I think it will inure to the benefit of our society.
Well, thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you very much.
We don't yet know the full extent of what ATIP has uncovered or the technology that they're chasing after. But we do know that their investigation of UFOs is likely continuing. We also know that we are not the only country interested in advanced propulsion systems like those many believe are on display in the ATIP videos. It's important that scientists and others working to understand and engineer this technology continue to do so, even if some of it has to remain redacted in the Black Files.